guys, and welcome back to this episode of the Annika Corinne Show. We're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. I'm going to jump right back into our initial question, talking about romance and artificial intelligence, and what do we see for the future? Is this a good thing for Tinder and Bumble? Do we want to fall in love with like our online boyfriends and girlfriends? What do we want to do? How will this affect us? I know you said it wasn't good. You were like, no, don't even do it.
That's weird.
Okay.
That's reserved for like science fiction.
Okay.
You start doing that in real life. I mean, you got people that's in relationships that's getting relationships with AI campaigns and all that, and that's just like, what are you doing? So it's like a form of artificial cheating.
Artificial cheating.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I read that article too, by the way. So you got people it's not reserved to just people that's single, but people are in relationships doing this mess.
I was reading, I forgot the name of the book, and the art museum had like a exhibition on it, but it talked about like this person fell in love with a robot, and maybe this is where I'm getting confused, because for me, robots and artificial intelligence are the same thing. Mm-hmm. But like maybe we just need to expand our understanding of what romance is and not limit it to like the physical form. But that's just me like challenging you.
Okay.
No, I also think that it's kind of I don't even know if you can call it romance really, right? Because it's not a human, it's not even a living thing, right?
It's zeros and ones. It's programming.
Yeah.
It's not even real.
What is real?
What is real?
Because I mean, I just maybe I came here today to be like, I don't know, devil's advocate. But the devil needs no advocacy. We know this. But if it's just numbers and it's just coding, right?
It is,
so what is real? What makes it not real?
Yeah, it's basically a program that's trying to guess like how it should respond to you, right? Algorithms.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I think it's kind of like in a lot of cases it kind of just is trying to guess what you want to hear, right? I mean, even like Alexa or something does that, where it's like, oh, hey, Alexa, what's the weather outside? And it just Googles the weather. It's like, is this what you want? And I think that most romantic interactions would be kind of like that. That being said, I do have one, to play devil's advocate, there is one thing that I think could be useful in terms of AI stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I think that it could be a good way for young people to practice those kinds of romantic interactions.
Oh, like consent training or something?
Yeah, like
that?
consent training, or like maybe even like learning to recognize abusive behaviors, right? So you could set a AI to be like, to be emotionally abusive, and like in a controlled setting, you could be like, this is what like an abusive situation would look like. And then you can have an AI actually like being mean to you.
Actually, I want to keep with that thought, but I see Gabriel's itching to say something, especially as an educator. What are your thoughts on this? And we'll come back to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would tie it to levels of loneliness in America. I think there is growing statistics of specifically younger men that are feeling more and more lonely, or have never had a partner, or have never had a sexual encounter at their 30s. And that's as high as it has been in the US right now. So I think people are still looking for affection in some sort of capacity. And AI can provide some sort of companionship and psychological, emotional development there, even if there's not somebody at the other side. And hopefully, as you were mentioning, it could be used therapeutically in order to then be able to form a real life community. But then we get into like ethical concerns about who's responsible for what the AI says, and what if the AI says something problematic or wrong, or what if the AI breaks up with you and then you're even more depressed. So I would try to figure out the question, why are people gravitating towards this kind of like affective relationship? And I think it's because they're not really finding that in their current communities that they're a part of.
That's so interesting because I feel like I'm listening to both of you, and if it is used therapeutically, I guess my fear is I'm getting too hung up on like that to me means this is real life, and you could have an argument that you were in fact in love with an AI person because see a person like I've already called it a person like it's just maybe I'm thinking about it too narrow like I'm being a little bit too literal because when I think about okay, so I was watching this one documentary. They followed maybe a group of like three different guys, and they all had partners who were like those dolls, those fake dolls.
Oh, yeah.
And the way that they talked about them was very much like, "This is my girlfriend. Like we go out, I do her hair. Like this is what we do." And like, I think the normal person watching it probably like would make fun of them, but I'm looking at it like but that's their reality though like we can't say that that's not romance if that's their reality but I wanted to go back to like Alex you talked about using it to kind of like help young people spot like violence or some of these like red flags in relationships. I think that'd be a great idea. I personally would love to see an AI or hear an AI say some like F shit because like that's how humans talk like in a way like how do you really spot those red flags if it's so curated and so manufactured like does that make sense? Am I saying this in the right way?
Yeah, I think for me that in a romantic setting, like any utilization of AI would have to orient people towards like having a human relationship eventually.
Yes.
Right. I don't think that AI could really realistically replace people to people interaction like in a romantic setting because it's like I don't know, I like people, man. I don't know. I would rather I think have a real girlfriend. Yeah, but I think that Gabriel brings up a great point about it being about loneliness and that like as we go further and further into the future here, there is more of a loneliness thing happening with people.
Yeah.
And there's probably dozens of reasons for that. It's like economic insecurity. It's sort of like reliance on the internet. It's cost of housing, cost of stuff in general. People. Well, this disintegration of communities all over the place as well. Even gentrification, and
the
so
loss of like those third party communal places if I'm saying that right like
or third spaces.
third
maybe?
spaces yeah. So the mall doesn't exist you can't find your next boyfriend or girlfriend at
Yeah,
the
well,
mall.
even that, like everything we buy everything online, right? I mean, you could just go into a store. There's a chance you can bump into people that and so I think that the question about AI romance and loneliness has to really be a lot about loneliness. The discussion, has to be about loneliness.
Okay.
How do we make people less lonely?
Yeah, how do we make people less lonely?
They could do what they do back in the 80s, 90s and just get out and socialize.
Yeah.
Spend so much time playing video games and streaming and watching movies, because I'm 44. So I remember it was a time where if you had to socialize, either talk on the phone or go outside and talk to people. But now people caved in the house and they just want to, go online and, do everything virtually.
Do you find that even in like your age group, are people just as lonely? Because I think even talking about this conversation, we're really speaking about like older millennials who are going into like their 30s and their 40s. Like, what about the folks that are already there?
In my group, like Generation X, yeah, because we grew up with the computers. That was called video game consoles, Nintendo, Super Nintendo. So we saw all this AI and computer stuff evolving as we was growing up. So yeah, we are a very lonely group too.
Okay.
Yes, it's not just the Generation Y or Z. It's X. It's pretty much everybody.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, very interesting. I'm gonna ask you some more questions about that.
That's fine.
Definitely. Since we have about two educators here, Alex, you're an educator, in my opinion.
Well,
and
yeah,
we have
okay.
Gabriel here as well. I definitely want to kind of transition to what does AI look like in your everyday 9 to 5 space? Are you guys having conversations about bringing AI into the classroom, even something as simple as like using AI in hiring. Like, is that something that you guys are talking about, or as an simple as like a piece of learning in like museums?
I'm not strictly a teacher. I'm not really a teacher. I've worked in museum settings in the past, but Brittany, my partner, is a school teacher, and I think that in terms of like AI in the classroom, I think it would probably first manifest like via those smart boards that they have.
Okay.
Right. And so I think that I can see sort of like a AI assistant being developed for teachers that helps the teachers in the classroom. Maybe like a AI tutor. And whether or not these things are good or bad, I think that my opinion is that they would probably be mostly bad, but you guys can debate me on that. In terms of museums and specifically archives, I think that there is potential initially. Well, actually, in archives, there already is sort of a AI presence in various forms of what we call OCR. And so OCR is a technology that's used to decipher written text and turn it into printed text for the purposes of transcribing and for research. So like this paper I have, which has got scribbles on it. So there is technology that exists, and it's existed for a while, that can interpret these scribbles into typed text for the purposes of, searching on a database. And that's, I think, the kind of stuff that's going to come out in museums first. I think eventually you might see some experimentation. Well, actually, there probably already is experimentation in terms of AI curation in museums, where you have exhibits that are developed by AI. But I think that kind of gets into the question of like AI and art.
Yeah.
Right. So like, is an exhibit that's curated by an AI, does that have like, is there actually curation that's happening, or is that just random stuff that an AI is putting together based on tags that have been entered by a human, probably, in relation to different museum objects and stuff? So, and I think that that ultimately like leads into AI and art, and like the question of like creation. Like, can an AI actually create something, or does it kind of just like
commands?
Yeah. Pull on what it thinks you want to see,
Gabriel? Yeah.
Yes. So AI has definitely been packaged as this new technology that is going to revolutionize education. I think the high hopes is that it's able to, as Alex said, really cater to students and help them learn better, more efficiently, and be able to like really have that one-on-one educational relationship with information. As an educator myself, teaching in a lot of public high schools in Philly, we haven't really been confronted or had like an emergency meeting about AI, because we're still kind of in the early phases, and the school districts hasn't implemented any AI policies yet. I have used AI to create lesson plans. And that's kind of like a bureaucratic, very boring thing that you need to do. Just write a lesson plan about a topic that you're teaching, so that you have that resource. But teachers don't end up using them anyways. So it's still at the beginning phases. But I also know of several cases where high school students are using AI to write their research papers and their term papers. But teachers are now becoming very savvy at identifying those papers. So, and there's also websites that you can plug in a paper, and it's going to tell you how much of it was done with AI. So one side, students are using it to like write and produce research papers and essays, but the other end, teachers are also being able to identify those things. So AI and plagiarism is still a lot of gray areas there, but there's a lot more legal work, and some universities are going to completely shut that down because it's against the whole purpose of learning something is that you actually are able to articulate what you're learning and not using an AI machine to do that for you. Um, but again, I think that we already are practicing education inside a very precarious educational system. Like teachers are underpaid. Classrooms, there's like 30 plus kids for bathrooms for classrooms. Our schools have asbestos. There's no air conditioning in the classrooms. There's a teacher shortage. So I would address that in order to increase the quality of education. I think the real way that we revolutionize the system is by paying teachers more, giving everybody quality internet, invest in third spaces for young students to go hang out so they're not indoors or at school. But then we're talking about having safer streets and fighting gentrification and paying everybody a good wage. So education, you can't really think about it as like an isolated issue. It's like so much connected to the entire city and the entire nation. And right now, I really hope AI can make everybody's lives easier, but also not fire a lot of teachers and also not end up
Yeah.
with a lot of students that are producing the same papers.
Hmm.
Wow. How are, I know you mentioned that teachers are able to spot if students are using AI. Like, can you, like, what platform are they using? I'm just curious because I learned about that through watching like South Park. Like, I saw that episode and I'm like, oh my God, like, kids are doing this?
Yeah, so a lot of students are using ChatGPT to just write
Oh, that's
generic
so scary.
essays because
Yeah.
also a lot of the essays that they need to write are like very standardized because education also is very standardized. So students just need to write like who was Abraham Lincoln and what was his attribution to like society. That's a very simple essay that ChatGPT could do. And because of that, some other websites have been designated precisely to identify the way that ChatGPT constructs a sentence and organizes information and overall presents an argument. So just like they're plagiarizing machines, they've been plagiarizing identifying machines for like 5, 10 years now. It's just a little switch in order to figure out if this is something that ChatGPT would do or not. And this is all the way through college and PhD, not just in high schools.
Mm.
Do you get any pushback from parents that may feel like, well, this technically isn't plagiarism, this isn't cheating? I don't have, I can't afford a tutor. I can't sit down and help my kid write this paper. Like, is Chat GPT really that bad? Do you see maybe in the future where it'll be embraced more as a tool versus a way to plagiarize?
I mean, the new field. So number one, I haven't heard anything about parents' reaction to Chat GPT. I think it's still too early for that to be in parents' radar, but who knows? In the next school year, there might be a new policy about it. Who knows? Um, but in terms of using ChatGPT, there's a new field that are called like prompt, not just not it's called online text like editing, where you use ChatGPT to organize your essay and then you fill in the blanks as an editor or you change it up a little bit.
Okay.
It happens a lot in translation. Um, but for example, a lot of copywriters that are writing promotional material for a brand or bloggers that are working for a company that they need to produce 3 articles a day, a lot of them say that ChatGTP it's still very rudimentary, not really good writing. Like it needs more flavor and seasoning. So then they approach it as editors, and it's like, okay, how do I spice this very generic article in order to make it sound human, or in order to make it sound like this company's brand? So
Mm.
that's something that's definitely already happening in the industry.
So kind of just using it to build like the skeleton of your work, pretty much. Okay. Great, great, great stuff. I do want to take this time to transition into art. I know, Alex, you brought up the conversation of can AI create? And I think that's really, really interesting. What do you think?
Far as art, I mean, you could tell like AI did, you know, the artwork because it just looks so manufactured. Um, the show Secret Invasion, they got a controversy going on because the opening credits use AI art.
Wow.
Yeah. So as more and more of these companies start using more AI artwork, a lot of artists is getting pushback because it's going to take a lot of jobs. You know, it's going to take a lot of jobs away for artists that want to, you know, or freelance, you know, graphic designers that want to go out there and, you know, do their craft. You know, and I just think that using too much of that technology is just it's just a way to push people out into the cold, basically.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When AI is recreating art, they're pulling from existing work. So
Yeah, that's
they're
right.
they're never really creating anything original. So I mean, hopefully there's still space for actual artists to create original concepts, but AI art is just replication, like just replica.
Yeah, but companies can go around that and cut corners.
Oh, true. Yeah, it's a company.
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
a
Corporation
company.
cut corners and be like, you know what? Why should we worry about bringing in 50 artists? We can have one AI programmer to do this thing and push everybody else in the code.
I think that brings up the point of like, you know, we talk about AI, you know, either bringing in this dystopia or whatever, or like improving our lives. But I think it's also like the question of whose lives will AI improve,
Oh, of
right?
course. Yeah.
So, like the CEO or whoever owns the
Of
company,
course.
right, is ultimately the one that benefits from something like that, right? And I think that in a lot of cases, if AI is implemented in a sort of labor-saving way, the people who ultimately benefit are the people who own companies, or the people who are already in positions of power,
Yeah.
and like people who are normal working people are the ones who are most at risk. Which is, I think, like one of the reasons why you find so much pushback against AI. Although there are probably ways that it could benefit people. You know.
Yeah. Because when I first started thinking about AI, my first thought, oh, you can go ahead, Gabriel. Yeah.
Oh no, just in this same vein about AI and art, a couple things. Yeah, absolutely. AI needs to reference other artwork in order to create an alternative, and it's been a lot of the cases that AI does that without the original artist's permission. So there's been a lot of artists backlash against AI because AI has been learning how to create art through downloading and using real people's artwork as a reference. And right now, there's not much legal framework to protect artists. But right now, it's there's more. If an AI blatantly uses your artwork as a reference, it infringes in copyright and plagiarism law laws. Yeah, but I agree with what Ricky was saying too, that AI art is very, again, generic and plastic, and it's very identifiable. And I don't think it has any artistic merit in like the art or in the animation scene. I think it's seen as rather a little bit lazy and not really super interesting, to be honest. Um, and because of this, there's entire new markets that are advertising themselves as 100% human made. So we're going to see a new
What?
wave
That's
where it's like
wild.
Wow.
That's wild.
all of our
Tyler.
all of our services don't use an AI, and that's why you should hire us. We have real people, real animators, real writers, and it's kind of like this craft. This kind of like your human, your art, the product that we create will have human hands behind it, and that's what makes us different than the
Yep.
competition. So we're already seeing that. And one last thing I wanted to mention was with some companies also like Nikon is a photo company. They're actively doing campaigns against AI because they noticed that a lot of people were submitting AI photos to like photo competitions and winning, and that was against the rules. So Nikon has really said like, let's not forget the real thing when we're taking photos out there. So it just opens up a Pandora's box of legal frameworks, creativity, artwork, signature, like all of that.
Yeah. Now it just has me thinking like, okay, if I go out to apply for a new job, this is completely off task. Like, am I going to have to put on my resume like human like person? Are you going to, or even when you're looking for jobs now, are companies going to start saying like, I want a physical body, like the word that you use, like a human applicant to like sign up? Because I'm even curious about how do they, I'm guessing you buy the software for the AI, but like how do you recruit AI to take away some of these like administrative jobs? These internships are going to start to kind of go away and everything. Like how are they integrating that into the workflow? Like that's something that I'm really curious about. Like how does it go from I work here to now I'm replaced by, I don't know, like an iPad? I don't even know. Like,
I saw something really crazy. I saw somewhere in Texas there was a prototype McDonald's that was automated.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
I
was like, whoa, that's going to take a lot of jobs away.
Yeah.
Teenagers, there's flipping burgers, even managers. No janitors. I looked in there, I didn't see no chairs, no nothing. I just seen a machine serving burgers and fries out of the window. I'm like, I've never seen this before. You know, and that's like within 5 years, that's what McDonald's and all these corporations are going to start doing.
Yeah. Well, so the other thing is that it cuts both ways, right? Because like I read a couple articles on my way here about how people are now using ChatGPT to write their cover letters.
Ooh.
oh my God.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? And they use ChatGPT to like come up with interview questions, like stuff like that. So it's really, you know, it's like kind of, you got to fight fire with some of these things, you know? And I think like if you're working in an office where, you know, X amount of employees are suddenly replaced by an AI, I feel like that really is going to open up like all sorts of resentment. And I think that in a lot of like companies, it's actually going to lead to like a decrease in productivity because people are going to be demoralized.
Oh God, yeah.
You know what I mean?
What I would love to see and what I liked that I saw during the pandemic, you know, having the conversations with people who got to work from home and they came to the decision that, or the realization like, oh wow, like I don't need to be in the office. I am more productive. I don't need to work 5 days a week. Like if you put AI in that situation, you don't even have that person. But what I would like to see deep down inside is hopefully this sparks the revolution that I would like to happen. Because if you take away these jobs from folks, they're no longer at work and you're not paying them.
No.
I mean, I would think at least if you want AI to do my job, hopefully I would live in a world or a country where the social services would take care of me and that I don't have to work. Like, you know, I love the idea of not working. I do love that idea, but
that was Andrew Yang's platform in 2020. Like he was all like, you guys remember when Andrew Yang ran for president?
Yeah.
His whole thing was like, AI is coming.
Yeah.
And like the best thing we can do is create like a social fabric that we can use to take care of people when they lose their jobs.
They just made Kamala Harris the AI ambassador.
They made her an AI ambassador.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if she has any expertise in that, but yeah, they mentioned something about her being the AI ambassador.
ooh, Gabriel, I see your hand. Yeah.
Yeah, so on this topic of automation, I definitely think that automation should do the work that nobody wants to do, as in like the most dangerous jobs or the jobs that you can do machines, like maybe picking garbage or recycling or dealing with toxic waste or
Toxic
doing
waste, yeah.
tedious Excel sheets and data entry and stuff. But you also have to think about like how corporations and industries are thinking about it. They're trying to maximize their profits. And if that involves firing a lot of people, and there's already stats of about like 30 or 40% of the workforce will be potentially replaced, there's still a lot of jobs there that don't need to exist. For example, Ricky mentioned like this automated McDonald's, and I think that's rough, but we don't really need any more McDonald's in the world. We need to automate food production so that everybody can grow quality food and distribute food everywhere, so there's no longer a need for a McDonald's or a need for food deserts. Like we need to AI is going to make a lot of jobs stick around instead of having them phasing out.
Yeah.
So I think we need to really invest in AI or automation doing quality jobs that are fundamentally important for human health and for strong communities instead of investing in automating these jobs that make people unhealthy or just going to contribute to global warming or just make more money for a couple extra billionaires.
Yeah.
So I'm totally into automation as long as people get to share from that wealth instead of just being fired. And one last thing, the reason why so many people are getting fired is because there's also very weak labor laws. If a lot of industries like the gamer industry or like right now Hollywood, if they had stronger unions, they wouldn't be even replaced with AI because they would have strong contracts that would protect them. This is the big thing in like the writers' strike in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a lot of companies want to replace writers that write shows like Abbott Elementary with AI. So they're trying to get a new contract where there's a clause that says you may not use AI in any process of the writing of a script. And that protects me as a writer, as a worker, that I will not be replaced by ChatGPT. So we need stronger laws that really protect people from these massive layoffs that Facebook, Meta did, Twitter did, Google did. So it's tied to. That's how I'm tying those together.
I know AI is starting to proliferate in the music industry too. You got artists saying like, I don't want AI writing, doing my songs,
Yeah.
And it's just it seems like AI is going away to the Matrix, where it's just trying to take all different forms of human life.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's going to infringe. There's going to be lawsuits. There's going to be
There's going to be a lot of lawsuits.
It's going to be a lot of law. There's going to be a lot of people protesting in the streets about it. It's going to be a lot of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something I always think about too when it comes to AI is that there is a difference, but nonetheless an overlap between AI and automation, right? In the sense that like at an Amazon factory or Amazon warehouse or something, they have tons of automation in the sense that, the workers can push buttons and, there's robots that go and retrieve the boxes and they come back. But those aren't necessarily AI.
Of course.
Right.
Of course.
And on the other hand, too, AI doesn't need to necessarily be something that's automated. Like for example, we talked before about that Delphi website, which evaluates ethical questions. That's not really automating anything, right? It's kind of, it's an experiment, I guess. A bad experiment doesn't really play out well, but so I think it's interesting to think about what the differences are and what the overlap is.
Yeah.
Because will AI replace jobs? Probably yes, and also automation will. But in different ways, you know what I mean?
When I think about them replacing the jobs, even going back to Gabriel when you were talking about the writer's strike, and even on that, I know when I was watching some of the content, those writers are already attached to a streaming service like Netflix, Hulu, Disney Plus, etc., etc. They're only writing for 12 episodes and then that is it. Hopefully their season gets to stay on. We don't live in the world of the Friends and the Seinfelds anymore where you can just get that money hand over fist. It gets me to start thinking about what is the new purpose of human life. And this is kind of a big philosophical question, the ultimate what is life, all of that. But if we're going to live in this world now where AI will have such a strong presence on everything, every industry, how do we as humans start to kind of reconsider what the value of our lives are now that it's not so closely tied to employment or production? I wonder, and that's just a question out there to the ether, but if anyone's thinking about that as well.
Is that like is the question like, what is life about if we don't have to work?
I guess so, yeah. If it's not so closely tied to your paycheck or like living check to check, or I gotta go to work because I gotta pay this bill.
I think you can kind of see. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's an amazing question because you're getting at the core idea that technology shapes relationships. Technology mediates how people relate to each other, either a car in the city or a cell phone and old photos, or as we mentioned earlier, like partners and relationships. I always come back to this great concept made by an American philosopher called Murray Bookchin. And he had the distinction between utopia and futurism. Futurism is basically the present projected onto the future, where nothing fundamentally changes. The main political and economic powers are pretty much intact. People still work, people still navigate the world as they currently are, just 30 years from now, the same. And this is pretty much what Silicon Valley is trying to do. Is like nothing will fundamentally change, but you might have a electric car, or you might have a Google eyewear where you can still go to work and stuff. So he proposes Utopia, which is using technology to like radically change human relationships to themselves and to the environment and to community and to politics. And it's kind of something that we talked earlier today. It's like ideally we could automate and have AI do the most fundamental jobs that sustain life. And then everybody else just has free time to enjoy life and play. Because wealth can be created from technology. For example, if I have an industry and I'm a cooperative and we automate the industry, I don't have to work anymore, but I still get a paycheck because I'm part of that cooperative. So the wealth, the profit, instead of going to a CEO, goes to all the workers there. And then that reduces the work week. And we already have conversations about reducing it from 40 hours to 20 hours or 30 hours. There's been very successful experiments in Europe about that. So hopefully Utopia is this future where people are more free to explore their passions, play outside, hang out with their neighbors, cook out every day, and just enjoy that, because all the ugly work is done by machines, and everybody benefits from that. But what we have right now is we do a lot of unnecessary work. And my last plug-in is there's this amazing book by David Graeber. He's an anthropologist, called BS Jobs. And he, through anthropological research, found out that about like 30 to 40% of all the jobs ever are unnecessary and don't contribute anything to society. And if we just eliminated overnight 40% of jobs, the world would not even bat an eye and things would dramatically improve. But we can't do that because people depend on those jobs. So we need to create a political system in which, like UBI, like that was mentioned, people could get a house and healthy food and healthcare, for example. And that's how I wish technology would be used in the future.
Yeah, I feel like we're on the same page because that's what I would want. I mean, that's when I talk about like if it's going to happen, I just hope it sparks this revolution where we completely like do an overhaul on everything. Because, and maybe I'm speaking as someone who's worked predominantly in nonprofits, and I've heard all of the like, you work in nonprofits, you don't like money. So I feel like I've always been like a passion worker to begin with. That I'm like, I would love for other people to have that opportunity as well. Like, what if your true calling is to just be like, you're an animator. That's just what it is. You're an animator and you don't need to necessarily do it for profit at all. Maybe I'm just, as a creative, as an artist, whatever, I've been thinking deeply about like if AI is going to be around, maybe now we can finally live in a world where we don't have to have such a capitalistic tied to the work that we do, especially as creatives. It can just be the work and the sake of like putting something out for an internal feeling that you get. I just want to feel good without it having to be so closely tied to capitalism.
It just seemed like, but now that us humans are sharing the same word AI, it's just that reading the article you sent to us, in Forbes, we just need to just, get new skills to catch up, or we just going to be behind.
Yeah.
That's just the world we in.
Yeah, I guess I just don't want AI to be my competitor. I
Yeah.
want it to be like
That's what it seemed like it is right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because they have advantages that humans don't have.
So they kind of, for me, I think an example of so I think the key problem is this, right? Like, can AI and automation do wonderful things for us, right? Can it bring about Murray Bookchin's Utopia? Yes, definitely. But I think the problem is that it is controlled by largely a wealthy elite, right?
Yeah.
And I think that there has to be for me, I actually kind of look to examples that are found in like cyberpunk fiction, so like William Gibson. If you look at something like Ghost in the Shell or even Blade Runner, in terms of like how people use technology that is mass produced at a corporate level to subvert like the purpose of that technology. Right. And I think that in terms of AI specifically, people should be like those people who are political activists or people who want to bring about a more equitable world need to think of ways that AI can be kind of exploited against the power structures from which it came from. Do you know what I mean? So, for example, we talked about people who hustle by, writing cover letters with AI.
Yeah.
How much of like if you have like a normal office job, how much of your job can you low key kind of quietly automate so that you can like I mean this is like sort of soft industrial sabotage in the sense that for AI, I think to ultimately bring about a better world for us in the future, we kind of have to use it in a way it's not meant to be used by the people who made it. That's my point of view.
I agree. I'll come back to that. Yeah, Gabriel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a wonderful point. And also, like Ricky mentioned, the thing is like, it feels like we're competing against AI, but we already live in an extremely like media in unequal world. So we need to ask the question: who's the most that are going to benefit to be able to work next to AI? And it's going to be people that have access, bare bones, to like internet education, and are already media literate to either learn programming or already work in tech. So it's really hard to learn those skills overnight. So there's a particular class of people that are able to not lose their jobs because I have already been working in engineering for a lot of years. So that's one thing. When I see who's not getting fired from this, those are the people that I see are able to stick around. But also back to like media inequity, even in Philadelphia, there's communities that don't have quality internet or have never had internet in their house or do not have a tablet or don't have a computer that they could use to either surf the web. So a big part of the population is already starting the race very late. They're not even in the race because they don't even have the tools to start that. So there's an extremely unequal access to technology in the US. And then lastly, we cannot forget that AI doesn't operate autonomously or in a vacuum. You need to underpay people in the global South in order to run through the data set that AI uses to be AI. So this is called offshoring, and we hire a lot of people outside of the US to spend the entire day classifying data, going through images, listening to music, so that AI can later use that to generate solutions based on the prompts. So we're going to start hearing a lot of cases that already exist of of entire industries in Africa and Latin America, of workers that are getting fed up by they're labeled by being exploited, but also there's research that they get PTSD, especially like moderators, like Facebook moderators that need to look at hundreds of thousands of images a day in order to flag things if it's either very graphic images. There's a human behind that that needs to approve that. So behind AI, there's this huge industry of hundreds of thousands of people that are getting paid zero to nothing to produce the actual technology there. So that's another unequal thing. Like AI needs that labor to exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think another important point
Thank you, Gabriel.
is that AI isn't free. Right.
Do it.
So
yeah.
there have been a couple of articles about how OpenAI, which is the company that developed ChatGPT, is like hemorrhaging money. And so much like the rest of the tech sector, like Tesla and Uber, these companies that are currently developing AIs are being propped up by investor money, right? And so I ultimately think that there is a possible world in which AI kind of becomes the next crypto, where it's like kind of around, but like its relevance is much less than anyone ever thought it would be, actually, because, it kind of was sort of like a bubble,
Yeah.
right? In the sense that there was a lot of interest in it, positive and negative, and then we all just moved on, right? I think that could happen,
Move on and like forget that, because
Well, I mean, think about it, right? So crypto is big, and then it's not. NFTs were big, and now they're not. And I know that people said that the internet was a fad too, but
look at us now.
right.
Yeah.
So like, I think that we kind of have to just like keep our finger on the pulse of it and see if like is there actually a there, because like I said, a lot of the costs of this are being either are these companies are hemorrhaging money, and like that's with them exploiting like Gabriel said, the global south and developing countries to pay for a lot of the labor that goes into developing these AI systems. So it could just all be a house of cards.
Gabriel.
That's a great point, and probably the reason why we're here talking about AI is because we were motivated by a particular hype, artificially produced hype by PR campaigns that are taking advantage of this very real development in a new technology, but the bigger you scream about it, the more you can get money to back it, the more you can motivate investors to give into your product, the more your stock prices goes up. And let's not forget that a lot of these technologies also work through government subsidies. So the government has also a lot of investment in AI. So what PR campaigns are doing they're presenting AI as like the solution to everything. And that might be a premature statement, but it's part of this hype wave. And just like Alex mentioned, we've had several different hype waves, like Google Glass, 3D printing, VR sets, the metaverse, self-driving cars, NFTs, and all of these come hype up. People make millions of dollars and people lose millions of dollars. So that's kind of like the bubble that we're now. But I think AI might be a little different, since a lot of people are getting fired and a lot of people are benefiting a lot of money from this, and because it's the actual technology that's able to make you rich very quicker if you're a big company, and it's just getting more and more powerful. And there's not a lot of legal framework to protect people from it, and things are going to get worse if it's completely unregulated. But that's just me probably being pessimistic. I really hope everybody learns how to do it and people can actually benefit from it.
I mean, I think pessimism is like synonymous with being a realist, but I also think too what makes AI like I think it's gonna be around for a while is that it is very obtainable. Even though, like you were saying, Gabe, that there's a lot of folks that don't have internet or technology, those are the people that I feel like are going to lose their jobs, and then we're going to punish them for just being poor. Like that's what we do all the time. Like if AI becomes this like new elite, I don't know, version of whatever, the poor folks are going to be the ones left holding like the bag, and they're not going to have a job, they're not going to have a house, and they're not going to have any social services to take care of them. And it's going to be because, well, you just should have had money for AI. And that's me putting it like in a nutshell. That's just, I think that's how that usually goes. But, wow. You guys got me thinking. At the end of this, Gabriel, I'm going to send you an email. You can send us all the books that you reference because they seem really, really awesome, and I want the public to be able to share that with us. That does kind of bring us to the end of the episode. I know we've been talking for about like an hour and a half, but I wanted to give you guys time to pose your own question to the panel if there's anything that you guys wanted to ask us while we're here.
I mean, this reminded me of like an industrial revolution, where everything was horse buggies, and then they brought in cars and everything, and it's the same thing going on with this technology, this AI technology. It's just going to just keep getting bigger and bigger to the point we have plugs in the back of our heads. It's like Matrix. I could see that happening. That end of human AI interface. I could see that happening in the next 5 to 10 years.
Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, they're already having AI date sites and stuff. So it's just going to keep evolving into just bizarre land.
Bizarre land. How about you, Alex?
Well, I think that like one, and I guess we kind of talked about this in terms of like what is art and like can AI be creative? But like, I have my doubts that AI is actually even intelligent, right? Like it's basically just. I mean, to me, based on what I've seen, I kind of feel like a lot of it, not all of it, but a lot of it is kind of just an algorithm that's kind of dressed up in a different way, right? So I think it's really tragic that a lot of people have lost their jobs over something that might not be real. But yeah, I mean, I feel like we should ask ourselves, like what will be the point where we can say, oh yeah, AI definitely that's definitely a real thing. That's like, like this AI thing talking to me right now is a person with presence and has actual thoughts and is thinking things
In character, yeah.
Because I think we're kind of a long way off from that. If you've interacted with AI or if you've seen AI like do art, I mean, like you guys are saying, it's plastic. It's derivative. It's based on stuff that already exists.
Yeah.
So I really doubt the I part in the AI acronym. That's me. That's where I'll leave off. But
Okay.
yeah.
I guess, I mean, yeah, do I think AI has a soul just yet? I don't know. I'm going to say no. But they can definitely mimic one, I think for sure. And that's what's a little scary to me. And then maybe I just start thinking really deeply about, well, humans lie all the time. Like, what makes that any different from an AI? But that's like a whole different conversation for another time. Gabriel?
Yeah, I think I would like to end things with the importance of media literacy. I still think that the majority of Americans are media illiterate, which means they don't really necessarily understand how social media works, how technology develops, how technology is changing. And this is very clear when you see Congress or the Senate do these public hearings to talk about TikTok or Facebook or Google, where the people that are supposed to represent us and protect us have no idea how Google works or how Facebook makes money. And that just reflects how a lot of people don't know enough about technologies to start asking the hard questions. And that's why I really, really appreciate this space right now where we're allowed to ask questions and be critical and really speculate on some positive but also negative aspects, because it's very important to train people to be suspicious of these PR campaigns that are promising to change everything. And that goes all the way up to Congress. I think compare Congress's meet with Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook versus his same meeting in Europe. You can just Google this, and it's going to be very drastic, different kinds of questions that are getting asked, because the lawmakers in Europe are a lot more media literate about the actual effects on privacy and social, the social fabric and everything. So I definitely would encourage everybody to keep learning more about how technology shapes relationships and shapes lives, and teach that to others. Like, really do the research. And I love all the resources that you shared. I think that's a great place to start, because the more media literate society that we have, the more power we have, and the less these corporations can get away with, like promising whatever the next technology is going to be in 2024.
No, that's amazing. Yes, thank you, Gabe, for closing us out with that for sure. And before we go, I just want to thank you to everyone for coming today. Gabe for joining us virtually, Alex for joining us in person, and for those who've been listening to the podcast since 2018, this is Alex in his 3D form, because Alex has been here with us for a while. And we have Ricky here as well. And I wanted to give this time to shout out Ricky, who's working on his animated series. He's now working on a movie for his award-winning animated series. Ooh. He's now working on a movie that is set to be released in 2025.
2026.
2026.
And you was a voiceover actress in there.
I was. Yes, I was.
Can I ask the name of the series?
It's called Marky.
Marky.
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to give you all the information.
Okay, yeah.
Great.
And I'm here to present to you the poster.
Oh, Marky. Yes. Thank you so much.
And your character, LaShonda, is on there.
Oh, wow. My character is on here. I hope you guys can see it. Am I putting in the right camera?
This is not AI. This is human generated.
Yeah. Is that, so which one is her?
That's her right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Perfect.
With the hat. Okay.
Yeah.
Human art, guys.
Human art.
Yeah, human art.
Thank you.
God bless it.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much for joining us for today's episode on artificial intelligence, and we'll be back again in the future. Peace. Thank you, guys.